Hey everybody, I'm your host Chris Gennaro. My co-host is Eric Rizk, and today we have Cameron McBride from Methwitch. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Okay, so let's just get right into it and talk about your album that you had come out in 2020. It
Yeah.
was April, I think, the Indwell. I know
hmm
you're a one-man project, but you're also in some other bands. Voidgasm, I think, was one of the bands. So I guess let's just talk about what caused you to do like the one-man projects versus the bands and the pros and cons of that stuff.
Sure. I think I just gravitated towards doing solo projects because it was easier for me. It's nice to kind of like go at your own pace, go as slow or as fast as you want, put out as much or as little material as you want. And it's also nice because you could do pretty much exactly what you want when you're in a band. You can kind of like got to compromise with everyone and stuff like that. And um, that's definitely cool in certain circumstances. Like I love the bands that I play in as well, but it's definitely nice being able to just create like exactly what I want.
So we were talking before, and you said you just moved to Los Angeles, and I think
hmm
most of your other projects are listed as New Mexico still. So are you going to stay with Voidgasm and some of the other projects, or is that now going to be problematic?
Yeah, we're gonna try and make Voidgasm kind of like an internet thing. Um, I'll probably do most of like the songwriting on my end, and then have our drummer like map out drum parts and stuff like that, and demo stuff out, and then we'll probably do like some Zoom meetings or something, and kind of tweak some of the writing and stuff that way, and then just have the vocalist like send me over vocal files, and I'll mix it all and stuff. So we're gonna try and do some more stuff as like an internet project.
So can I assume that you guys, for either Methwitch or Voidgasm, that you like the main recorder producer guy, like you're doing all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So no studios or anything.
Nope, just my bedroom.
We've had a couple one-man band projects on, and I always sort of ask them about the live question because I feel like innumerable forms. We were talking to them, and that started out that way, but then he got band members and was able to do some live shows. But then I talked to some other people, and I said, are you thinking about playing live? And it was just like flat out like, no, just stop right there. I'm not doing it. What do you have any feelings about doing live shows?
Yeah, for Voidgasm, we've definitely done live shows for sure. But Methwitch, I don't think I ever want to. It just stresses me out thinking about like trying to find band members and like teaching them all the stuff, and then like the newest album has like a bunch of weird shit on it that it'd be like kind of confusing to try and teach people. Like a lot of the guitar stuff is super unorthodox. Like I'm using like pickups as frets and stuff like that, and a bunch of weird shit. And then I'd have to probably have like a Slipknot amount of people on stage to be able to pull off the sound the way I'd want it and stuff like that. So I don't know. It just stresses me out thinking about it. I'm like, no, I'll just write it and put it out and leave it at that.
You do a bunch of like I was looking through your metal archives, and I always get suspicious when I see like things not linked, because I know, oh, okay, like that's sometimes it's like straight up it's just not metal, and then other times like they just don't consider it metal for some reason. But in listening to some of your other stuff, it's like there's definitely some non-metal, like almost. I mean, I don't know what maybe dance type stuff. I don't know what to call it. So I was just curious about like the difference between doing some of the like the pop stuff or where that comes from as versus doing like the extreme noise stuff of like Methwitch.
Yeah, I guess I just like a lot of different kinds of music, and then I don't really like to limit myself as a musician. I like to be as diverse as possible. And that's actually part of the reason I moved to like the LA area too, is because I wanted to get into like songwriting and producing for like pop music and that kind of thing. So I definitely enjoyed that side of things. And then I'm even dropping a full length tonight actually for like my like 90s alt rock kind of sounding project Bleachwave. So I'm dropping an album for that tonight. And then Yeah, just do like a lot of pop stuff for fun too. Pretty much just whatever I'm feeling like, you know.
Do you ever get people who are like, you know, oh, I like Methwitch, but I like that God the Bounty Hunter Project too. Like they're with you on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, there's definitely some people like that for sure, but most of my my non-metal projects are a pretty hard sell because most of my fan base are like Methwitch fans because that's the biggest project of mine. So like a lot of times I'll post like non-metal stuff and it'll be kind of like talking to a brick wall or something, but there are definitely like a few people that like kind of fuck with everything, and that's super cool. But yeah, I guess I'm just like not good at promoting like outside of metal or anything, so it's kind of hard sometimes, but some people are into it. So
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because you know as I'm poking around Bandcamp and stuff, like you know Methwitch seems to have like a pretty big following, yet is probably the least accessible music that you know
yeah.
I could think of. Where your pop stuff doesn't have as much, and that's the stuff that I'm like, oh shit, I could see this being on like the radio or something. Like it's an F load better than what my, you know, sometimes my kids are messing around with the radio dial and I'm just like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of weird that that the one has a bigger following. You know,
Yeah.
when I'm listening to it, I definitely think like, oh shit, like Methwitch isn't for everybody, but it's, you know, I think that's for me, that's my favorite stuff in life. You know, the stuff that's not for everybody.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like I definitely got a lot more fans after the last album too. And I think a lot of it is just because it's so over the top that people are just like, what the fuck is this? And they start sharing it around and stuff. So I think that's part of it for sure, is just like a lot of it's just super chaotic and stuff. And people find it weird and cool, I guess.
Is most of your promotion like grassroots stuff, or did you have anybody who like really pushed your stuff that you were like grateful that they got it out there?
Yeah, definitely. Slam Worldwide was a big one when I first started because a lot of my old stuff is kind of like more like death metal and beatdown oriented. And they definitely helped me get like a decent amount of followers for sure through doing like YouTube streams and that sort of thing. And then I changed directions with the last album, and they actually wouldn't stream my album because it had singing on it. So I had to. They did the singles off the album, but they wouldn't do the full album because there's like clean singing on it. So yeah, kind of the last leg of this album, I kind of just had to promote it on my own, and it was just kind of just people sharing it around and stuff. And then Mathcore Index helped out a lot too. They share my stuff quite a bit, so I think that kind of opened me up to that fan base a little bit, like the kind of like Mathcore side of things, which is really cool. But yeah, those are the two main ones I could think of for sure.
So what's like the process for when you're doing like a one-man project? Because I know like a lot of the bands, they bring different stuff to the table, and you know, like you said, you like doing your stuff yourself. So you know, do you start with a guitar riff? Do you start with the, you know, like a drums, or do you just map it out in MIDI or something like that?
Yeah, for like my metal stuff like Methwitch and stuff like that, what I usually do is I'll have like a couple guitar riffs in mind, and I'll kind of write while programming drums, I guess. So that'll kind of like help lay everything out. And then I'll kind of do like a scratch guitar track like as I'm mapping stuff out, just like little sections and stuff like that. And then once I have all the drums mapped out for it, I'll go through and track like the actual guitars and bass. And then I'll do like the noise and all that stuff after that. And then I'll do vocals last. And then sometimes I'll go back and like add more weird shit like after the vocals are done. And then for the other stuff, like the like Bleach Wave and then like the pop stuff and that kind of thing, sometimes it's the same situation where I'll do like guitars and drums first, and then there's sometimes where I'll have like a vocal hook I'll think of or something, and I'll kind of like try and build around that. So I guess it kind of depends on the project a little bit.
So do you think, like you said that you're going to try to do more pop stuff when you move to LA? Is like the dream, I assume, to like make a living doing that stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I definitely like to just make a living off playing music and writing and that sort of thing. Right now I'm doing like caregiving on the side to make money because I'm definitely making some money off like streams and merch and stuff, like a decent chunk, but it's definitely not enough to like live off of, especially in LA. It's super expensive out here.
Yeah. Well, what did you say you're doing for? You said something else for work. I missed what you said.
Oh, caregiving
Oh,
for
caregiving.
yeah, like senior citizens and stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that took me a second I was like, okay.
What is the significance of the name Methwitch? Is there anything behind it, or?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story actually.
Okay.
So back in 2014, I was working for this company called Aaron's, and what they do is they lease out like furniture and appliances and that sort of thing. So and I was a delivery driver, so I'd have to deliver like beds and washing machines and TVs and stuff like that to people's houses. And me and my partner had to go to this one apartment complex to deliver. It was like a bed set, so we had to set up a bed and like a nightstand or something. And it was like a pretty nice apartment complex, but then we got to like the person's apartment, and the lady that opened it like literally looked and sounded like a witch. And the first thing she said to us is she was like, "You motherfuckers bring any pillows?" We're like, what the fuck? So then she had us set up her bed and everything. And while we were in the bedroom, we smelled kind of like a weird, like, it smelled like a burnt chemical smell or something.
Yeah.
And we were like, what the hell is that? So we got done setting up the bed or whatever. And then we walked back into the living room, and she is like, "Did you guys smell that in there?" We're like, "No, we didn't smell anything." And then we looked over at like her table, and there was a pipe on the table.
Oh,
So we're like, she was like, I don't know a whole lot about drugs, but she was either smoking like meth or crack or something in there, like while we were setting her bed up. And I just thought she looked like a witch, and she was smoking meth in there, meth witch. So
Okay.
that's where it came from.
That's funny. That's funny.
do you ever think about recording any other bands if you've got all the setups and stuff?
I did for a while, and at the time I didn't really enjoy it. I think I really enjoy like writing and stuff more than like, I guess, recording other bands and stuff. Like, it's cool if I just record myself, but I guess it's definitely like a lot more like patience and stuff having to record with other people and that sort of thing. And then,
Well, I was just thinking more of like an income type of thing, you know, not like, oh, I'll do this in my free time, but you know, like you know, some of the metal musicians that we've talked to are definitely supplementing their income, you know, by recording other bands and stuff, because they've got the setups, they're able to do it, and so it just seemed like reasonable.
yeah, I did it for a while, and I was making like a little bit of spare money on the side and stuff, but in the end, it was kind of like not worth it, I guess. Like a lot of times, like people would come and just like have not had practiced their stuff or whatever, and then they would just be sitting there forever. And like, I think another problem too is I was charging per song and I wasn't charging hourly.
Wow.
So I'd have people come in and like literally take 3 hours to track vocals for like a 2-minute song, and I was only single tracking vocals too. I wasn't double tracking, and it was just like frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
And it's like people like not being able to keep like simple time and stuff. I'm like, dude, like, have you ever heard of a metronome in your life?
That's bad. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just like a lot of like super stressful stuff like that. And then I was like, no, I'm good. I'll just record myself in my bands.
Yeah, not doing it by the hour was, I mean, I hate to give you shit about that, but that didn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah, and then like the other thing is like at the time I was working like 50-60 hour weeks too on top of that, so both together it was not worth it.
So do you also do all? I mean, assume if it's a one man project for the music that you do most of the artwork, or how does that come about?
Yeah, for the most part. For Methwitch, the only album cover I didn't do was Shadowkeeper. That one was done by Daniel McBride, and not related, but we were from the same place and same name, and everyone thinks we're related, but we're not. But yeah, he actually works for some Sumerian Records, and he was their graphic designer for a while. I think he's like their vice president now. Like he moved up in Sumerian like a lot, but yeah, he did the artwork for that one, and then all the other ones I did myself.
One of my favorite songs off of Inwell is the Teeth Like Nails one, and I think I gotta check my notes, but I think that one had somebody else helping out on it. It was
Alex Sterling.
Yeah. So how did you hook up with him? Is it like, what's the story there?
He's also from Albuquerque, and he used to play in a deathcore band out there called Eat a Helicopter, and they got pretty big for a while back in the day. And we just kind of stayed in touch, and he did the artwork for my one of my pop albums, that Bride project. He did the album cover for that album, and I always thought he was like a really sick vocalist and stuff. So I was like, yeah, you should hop on a track, and he did it. So.
Did you ever think of, for the pop stuff, did you ever think of doing a death metal version of one of the pop tunes on one of the death metal projects?
No, because I feel like that's something that was definitely cool in like 2007, like the pop goes punk and that kind of thing. And then now it's like literally every single pop song that comes out, like a deathcore band covers it in like a week. And I think it's just gotten kind of like annoying at this point. So I was kind of like, no, I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's kind of crazy actually. Like a pop song will be out for like a week, and then like a deathcore band will like cover it already. And it's like, this is ridiculous.
I must be missing that stuff. I mean, I'm not denying that that's true. It's just funny to me because I don't think I'm aware of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you said Voidgasm was playing a lot of shows. Do you have a lot of connections? Who is the bands that you like to play with in New Mexico? Like how is this the scene there?
It was actually super awkward for us. I think it's kind of a weird story, but a lot of people hated us and then my other band because we outed a rapist in the scene, and that was like their homie or whatever. And of course they all took his side. So like after that, every show we played, people would just walk out during our set. And yeah, so most of the Voidgasm shows we played, is at least like the hardcore ones, were like super awkward. Like people were just like, they would walk out during our set and stuff. And then the last show that we played was actually super cool. Our bass player works for like a piercing studio, and they held this event. It was like a fundraiser event, and they had like body suspension acts, and like burlesque dancers and stuff like that. So there was only like 2 bands that played it, and the rest were all just like weird, cool acts and stuff like that. And then during our last song, they actually pierced some people on stage, like put the hooks through their backs and stuff, and did like suspension like while we were playing. It was pretty tight.
Okay, I mean that sounds weird, but yeah, I'd watch that, I guess.
Yeah, it was super weird, but it was definitely like the most metal show I've ever played. Just because it was like super brutal. But yeah, it was cool just because it was different. Like I'm used to playing like hardcore shows and that sort of thing. So it was like a totally different vibe, and people were like actually stoked for us, stoked to see us play and stuff. And that show was cool. And then we played with Ringworm and Goat Whore, and that show was cool because it was like a death metal show, not a hardcore show. So that one was pretty cool too. And then I think the one before that we played like this little bar, and they didn't even have a stage or anything. And we're like a super loud band, and it was like during sound check or whatever, and then I started playing my guitar. They're like, you need to turn that down. And I like played some more, and they're like, turn it down more, until it was just like my amp was literally on like 1, and they're like, okay, you're good now. And then all of us ended up having to like turn up like mid set because we couldn't even hear like over the drums, and we just made it like loud as shit in there.
Yeah, that sounds super bizarre.
Yeah, it was just like, that's another one of those awkward shows where there was like maybe like 10, 15 people in there, and it was a bar, but it was almost kind of like a little like bistro layout or something. Like it was small. It was like really small, and yeah, it was super weird.
So I know you did a Slipknot cover. I saw you did there's Cannibal Corpse cover. But those bands aren't really like your like Methwitch, because Methwitch is just so noisy and grindy, and I maybe you described it as a what the fuck, but that's kind of like some of what I get out of it, like it's just so all over the place. Who were your other influences? Did you have other like grindcore influences that you were listening to?
Yeah, actually there was like quite a bit of Slipknot worship on the last album. So Slipknot was definitely like a big one for sure. But as far as grind goes, like probably like Magruder Grind and like Phobia and like Insect Warfare and Napalm Death, like kind of like that sort of thing. And then there's like some industrial thrown in there too, like Nine Inch Nails and Godflesh and that. And then a lot of like mid to late 2000s like mathcore, deathcore, like Ion Dissonance and See You Next Tuesday, who also have kind of like a little bit of grind influence thrown in there too. So it's like a lot of that kind of like chaotic like mathcore kind of stuff too thrown in there. And then still had like a little bit of like the death metal, like Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel in there, like a little bit for some of the riffs, but I kind of went like the more chaotic route this time around.
Are you working on new stuff for Methwitch? Like what's the big dream with Methwitch? I mean, like what are you is that just going to be like just releasing an album every year? I mean, if you can't go on tour, right? If you're not going to play shows. Mm-hmm. So what are you working on, I guess is the question.
Not a whole lot for that project at the moment. I'm kind of taking a break to work on like my non-metal stuff for a little bit. I think maybe this summer I'll start working on a new album for Methwitch. I started working on one song because I'm actually supposed to be releasing a split sometime this year. So I did 2 like really short songs. I think my side of the split's like 3 minutes long or something. For that. And then other than that, I started working on one song for the new album, and it was like some like slow 9 Inch Nails shit. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wait till like this summer when I'm back in the groove of like writing heavier stuff, and then maybe I'll start focusing on something.
Is the split with a label?
No, it's actually another DIY kind of like mathcore project, and they haven't released anything yet, so it'll be their first release. And yeah, so they're doing 2 songs, and then I'm doing 2 songs for, I think the whole split's like 5 or 6 minutes long. It's super short.
Is that gonna be like a tape or 7-inch or something, or just a digital?
It'd be sick to do vinyl for it. Like I've never done vinyl for any of my projects before, and I've always wanted to, so it'd be sick if like enough people are into it to do like some 7 inches or something.
Okay, I mean, it seems like from Bandcamp you have a decent following, so I'm kind of surprised that at some point you wouldn't be able to do vinyl. You know,
Yeah, I've really been wanting to do it for Indwell, and I've had some people request it, but vinyl's just so expensive, and then I'd have to do a double LP too. It's a really long album. So I'm kind of like a little sketchy about doing that just yet, but hopefully like in the not too distant future.
well, you got a ton of short songs, so you would think a 7-inch might make sense at some point. Like, you know, if you can do like a, you know, 3.5-minute long songs, you could do something kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Just throwing it
I've
out.
also kind of like toyed around with just doing like a grind side project too, and then just doing like a 7-inch that's like 10 songs, but they're just like short as fuck.
I mean, is there anything else that like just is something that you really need, that you find more difficult than something else with doing the one-man band stuff? Like the drum programming, if you're not a drummer, or like how does that come about?
That's actually pretty easy for me because I play drums. I can't play like Methwitch stuff. Like I could probably play in like a super mediocre like hardcore band or something. But yeah, so I know how like drums work and everything, like the mechanics of it and that sort of thing. So drum programming is usually not too bad. Sometimes writing lyrics could be a little challenging, especially like the last album was a concept album. So I definitely had to focus a little more on that this time around. But it was kind of like once I got like a couple songs, like stuff started kind of like falling into place and the story started coming together a little more and that sort of thing. So
You mentioned the drum programming. Did you ever use like a MIDI drum set, or is it all like thrown together with samples and stuff?
it's all just
Like MIDI snippets and things.
for the most part, it's just like all programmed like MIDI on my computer. And then Indwell actually did have some live percussion as well. Like Indwell, it had like that kind of like marching band sounding section at the beginning and end of it, like that marching band like drum kind of sounds. And that I all did like live. It was just like 10 or 12 layers of drums. Just like I had toms set up. I did like 3 or 4 layers of like just toms. And then I had like this really pingy, like, it sounds almost like a marching band snare, honestly. And I did like maybe 3 or 4 layers of that too. And like some other like weird little percussion stuff in there too. So that song had some live percussion. Burn Victim had some live percussion in it. Spiral had some live percussion in it. So there's like little bits and pieces of live drums like kind of scattered throughout it, like on top of the programmed drums.
So that's cool. So you have a drum set then, obviously, you know, if you're doing
Yeah.
live. Cool. Anything else, Eric?
I can't really think of anything else.
Okay. Yeah. Anything, you know, before we wrap it up, anything you want to promote, Cameron? I know you said you're just dropping an album. Maybe it's not metal, but I think people would be interested in checking out like what you do, you know.
Yeah, so that should actually be dropping here in about 30 minutes, actually. And I actually already unlocked it on Bandcamp, so you can find it on Bandcamp already. But it's for my project Bleach Wave. The album's called East Jesus. If you're into like 90s, like alt rock, grunge, emo, it's kind of just like Smashing Pumpkins, Dinosaur Jr., Sunny Day Real Estate, Weezer, like all that shit like thrown together. Just super 90s, like super fuzzed out guitars, really loud.
Cool. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up then. Yeah, Cameron, I you know, good luck with your move.
Thank you.
And like I think, you know, everybody should check out the Methwitch album. I know we sort of get into this weird thing, me and Eric, when people have stuff that is, you know, name your own price. I always think that's awesome, you know, because you can go and check it out. And Eric's like, oh, you make sure that you promote, you know, spend money, you know. support the scene, and I'm like, well, yeah, no shit, but you know, there's at least there's not an excuse not to get it.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, that's ridiculous. So I always like to call that out because I just think that, you know, if you like grindcore, you just got to go and download it because you'd be stupid not to. But I just love that type of noisy grindcore stuff. So I really like dig the album, and I'm real happy that you can come on and talk to us about the project.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
Later.